CEO freezes as two little girls call him Daddy. Then their mother appears, his lost love from 5 years ago. The truth changes everything. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. A quiet hush had settled in the exclusive VIP lounge at the international airport. The vibrant chatter of wealthy travelers, the gentle clinking of crystal glasses, and the distant hum of announcements created a symphony of low sounds that felt oddly comforting, until it was abruptly broken by the soft voices of two little girls. They were identical in every way: same honey-brown curls, same curious eyes, and the same shy but determined expression. Their matching pink coats and little shoes tapped gently against the polished floor as they walked in tandem. At first, few people took notice of them. Perhaps they were the children of another executive passing through. Perhaps they were just a fleeting glimpse of family life in a place usually reserved for well-dressed adults speaking in serious tones. Yet something about these two little girls demanded attention. They giggled, clutched each other's hands, and then, after a brief conspiratorial exchange of glances, they darted toward a tall, impeccably dressed man who stood near the lounge's large windows. That man was Adam Hayes, CEO of a rising multinational tech firm known as Titan Tech. He wore success as comfortably as he wore his tailored suit. At just 33 years old, he commanded respect in the boardroom and turned heads in every room he entered. His broad shoulders, neatly combed dark hair, and watchful gray eyes gave him an aura of confidence that bordered on intimidating. But on this particular evening, a weary look clouded his normally steadfast gaze. A sudden flight delay had trapped him in the lounge for hours, forcing him to rearrange meetings, cancel appointments, and face the possibility of missing out on a crucial deal overseas. Now, as he sipped a strong black coffee, he contemplated a last-minute solution to salvage the business trip that had spiraled into chaos. He had neither the time nor the patience for interruptions. Yet, interruption came, in the form of the two little girls. They hesitated only briefly before standing directly in front of him. One of them tugged at his suit jacket. He looked down, startled to see these tiny faces peering up at him with bright, unwavering eyes. "Daddy," the first one said softly, her voice trembling with a mixture of hope and fear. Adam blinked, his coffee cup suddenly feeling too heavy in his hand. His mind raced. Was this some sort of prank? He'd never seen these children before. Before he could form a response, the second little girl echoed in the same soft voice, "Daddy, can we please talk to you?" A hush fell over that corner of the lounge. Nearby travelers cast curious glances, their interest piqued by the scene. Adam set his cup down carefully and crouched down to the children's eye level, his expensive shoes squeaking on the polished floor. A wave of questions flooded his thoughts. Who were these girls? Why were they calling him Daddy? He'd lived a structured, organized life, no shady relationships, no secret children. At least he was certain of that. Or was he? "Excuse me," he began, trying to keep his tone gentle despite his confusion. "Are you lost? Do you need help finding your parents?" Instead of answering, both little girls exchanged a glance that was heartbreakingly similar, like a mirror reflecting the same expression twice. One whispered something to the other, then turned those solemn eyes back to Adam. "Mommy's coming," she said simply, as though that explained everything. Before Adam could respond, he sensed movement behind him. He looked up, and all at once the world seemed to tilt on its axis. There, standing a few steps away, was a face from his past he had tried and failed to forget: Natalie Bryant. The moment their eyes met, every memory he'd worked so hard to bury rushed back like a tidal wave. He remembered her laughter in the old college cafeteria, the late-night library study sessions where they shared secrets and stolen kisses, the heartbreak of her sudden disappearance from his life 5 years ago without explanation. Natalie's long chestnut hair framed a face that was older now, perhaps a bit more careworn, but still undeniably beautiful. She wore a simple sweater and jeans under her coat, understated for someone as striking as she was. In her eyes, Adam saw the same spark of intelligence and warmth he'd fallen for, now tinged with regret and anxiety. He rose slowly to his feet. His mind was a vortex of questions, confusion, and an anger he couldn't quite suppress. He wanted to demand answers. Where had she been? Why had she vanished? And most urgently, what did these two identical girls have to do with him? Before he could speak, Natalie's voice broke the tense silence. "Adam," she managed, her tone trembling as her gaze drifted to her daughters. "I'm so sorry for everything." For a moment, Adam forgot the other people milling about, forgot the lounge, forgot his delayed flight. He was lost in the surge of old feelings warring with new reality. He looked again at the girls. If he let himself see it, really see it, he noticed the faint reflection of his own features in their big, inquisitive eyes. An impossible truth began to dawn on him. "How?" he whispered, the breath catching in his throat. "How can they be? Are they?" Natalie swallowed hard. Tears gleamed but did not fall. "Yes, they're yours, Adam. Meet Emma and Lily, our daughters." Our daughters. The words knocked the air from his lungs. He hadn't been ready for fatherhood 5 years ago, and certainly wasn't ready for it now, in the middle of an airport lounge of all places. Yet, with those two little girls staring up at him, hearing them call him Daddy, something stirred deep in his chest. Was it a protective instinct? Fear? Guilt? He couldn't even name it. All he knew was that his mind was reeling and raw emotion threatened to break through the carefully maintained facade he wore like armor. So many questions crowded in. Why did she leave? Why was he never told? Did her disappearance have something to do with their sudden reappearance now? And overshadowing everything, a deep sense of betrayal. He was not a man who liked surprises. Unpredictability went against every principle he had built his success on. But in the midst of his confusion, Adam also felt something else. A deep, overwhelming longing that took him back to campus days, to the simple love that had once existed between him and Natalie. Could that love still be alive under all these secrets and years of silence? As the lounge stirred with hushed whispers, an older woman covering her mouth in astonishment, a couple of business travelers pausing mid-conversation to watch the unfolding drama, Adam locked eyes with Natalie. He felt the tension thrumming through them, like an unspoken chord that had never really been severed. Did she feel it too? "We need to talk," he said, his voice low, controlled, but barely hiding the tremor beneath. "Not here," she replied, glancing around at the curious onlookers. One of the twins, Emma or Lily, he still couldn't tell who was who, fidgeted nervously as if she sensed the discomfort in the air. Natalie knelt down and smoothed the girl's hair. "I promise we'll explain everything, okay? Daddy and I just need a few minutes." Daddy. There it was again. Adam's heart twisted painfully at the word. Part of him wanted to run back to the safety of his meticulously planned life, his multi-million-dollar deals, his boardroom conquests. Another part of him wanted to gather these children, his children, into his arms and shield them from the stares, from the world, from everything. But he stood frozen, still grappling with the idea that his life was no longer a neat equation he controlled absolutely. He gestured for Natalie and the girls to follow him to a quieter corner of the lounge. Onlookers parted like the sea, curious but unwilling to intrude. Once they reached a quieter spot, Natalie took a deep breath, as if preparing for a confession. "Adam," she began, "I know how impossible this seems. I know you have every right to be angry, but 5 years ago something happened, something that forced me to leave. It wasn't just about us. It was about—" Before she could finish, an airline attendant made an announcement through the speakers. Flight 762 to London has now been cancelled due to mechanical issues. All passengers must rebook at the main service desk. A murmur of frustration rippled through the lounge, but Adam hardly heard it. He was riveted by Natalie's every word, every movement. Questions formed on his lips, but the frightened look in the twins' eyes held him back. They were already overwhelmed, clutching the edges of their mother's coat like they might disappear again if left unguarded. Natalie seemed to notice his turmoil. "Give me a chance," she implored softly. "I never wanted to keep them from you. There were reasons. I promise I'll explain." Adam nodded, though he wasn't certain why. Maybe it was the hollow ache in his chest when he looked at Emma and Lily. Maybe it was an old ember of love refusing to die. Maybe it was the type of man he'd always tried to be, one who sought answers before passing final judgment. He cleared his throat, turning to the girls with a gentleness he rarely showed anyone. "Hi," he said, struggling to keep his voice steady. "I'm Adam." They smiled, a hesitant but radiant expression that nearly shattered the last of his composure. Neither girl rushed to hug him, and he didn't push them. This moment was fragile, like glass that could crack under too much pressure. Natalie straightened. "Let's find someplace quiet," she suggested, "away from all these people. We'll talk, and I'll answer everything I can." Adam scanned the lounge, noticing how thoroughly their drama had become the center of attention. With a quick nod, he guided them to a private alcove near the exit, ignoring the whispers that chased after them. His flight delay was the least of his worries now. His entire life had been delayed by 5 years of mystery, and he needed to discover why. As they walked, the twins huddled close to their mother, occasionally peeking up at the man they had claimed was their dad. The swirl of curiosity, fear, and excitement in their young eyes only deepened Adam's resolve to hear Natalie's explanation, no matter how unbelievable it might be. Yet even as they settled into the quieter corner, Adam couldn't shake the sense that this reunion was merely the beginning of a larger story. Shadows of the past, unspoken secrets, and powerful emotions hovered around them, and deep within him, a question raged. What price would they all pay for these 5 lost years? A tense silence hung in the small alcove as Adam slowly lowered himself into a leather seat. He watched Natalie slide into the chair opposite him, the twins nestled protectively at her side. For a moment, nobody spoke. The commotion of the airport lounge, carts wheeling by, muffled announcements overhead, travelers searching for seats, felt oddly distant, as if they were now in a world of their own. Adam glanced at the twins. They were leaning against Natalie, each holding one of her hands. Their gazes darted between him and their mother, curiosity and uncertainty brewing in their young eyes. In the sterile glow of overhead lighting, he noticed again the subtle details. The faint dimple on the left cheek that matched his own. The sweep of long lashes reminiscent of Natalie's. There was no denying the truth. His face was reflected in theirs. Yet the shock of it all weighed heavily on him. 5 years was a long time to be absent from a child's life, especially if that child was yours. It was also a long time to harbor hurt and questions. Where had Natalie gone? Why hadn't she told him she was pregnant? Why now, of all times, did she reappear? He cleared his throat, willing himself to stay composed. "Okay," he began, his voice just above a whisper. "I'm listening." Natalie took a moment to gather herself. She looked toward the twins, then back at Adam, her expression torn between regret and determination. "I owe you an apology," she said softly, "and an explanation. One I should have given you years ago, but I swear, Adam, I had no choice." Her words stirred a bitter memory. He remembered waking up one morning in their off-campus apartment to find her side of the closet empty and a cryptic note on the kitchen table. "I'm sorry. I have to leave." He'd searched for her, asked mutual friends, even considered hiring a private investigator when she wouldn't return calls or messages. Eventually, He'd accepted the heartbreak as a final ending, burying himself in work and letting Titan Tech fill the void she left behind. "You left me," he said, his voice a mixture of accusation and hurt. "Without a word, just a note. Then you disappeared." Natalie nodded, her eyes glistening. "I was scared, desperate. My life, it turned upside down overnight." Adam clenched his jaw. "And you couldn't trust me enough to tell me what was happening? I would have helped you, whatever it was." She hesitated, as though reliving a painful memory. "I know you would have helped. But what if helping me meant putting you in danger? You had your whole career in front of you. I didn't want to destroy it." "Danger?" Adam echoed, his confusion deepening. He shifted his attention to the twins, who were quietly taking in every word. Perhaps sensing the conversation was too heavy, Natalie reached over and gently stroked their hair. "Sweethearts, would you like to find a snack machine or maybe read some books over there?" She nodded toward a small children's corner with pastel chairs and a low bookshelf. The lounge staff kept it stocked with kids' activities to pacify young travelers. One of the girls, Emma or Lily, looked uncertain, but the other stood up bravely. Lily, Natalie had whispered her name a moment earlier, grasped her sister's hand. "Come on, Emma," she said. "We'll be right there, Mommy." The two little figures scampered away, pink coats bobbing as they walked. Natalie and Adam watched them go, an unspoken heaviness filling the silence. He exhaled, feeling the crushing weight of all he'd missed. First steps, first words, birthdays. The bitterness at that lost time twined with a confusing mix of relief. They were here, alive, healthy. At least he had that. Natalie turned back to Adam. "After graduation," she began quietly, "I found out I was pregnant. At first I was terrified, but I wanted to tell you, Adam. So badly. Then everything changed." She pressed her lips together, pulling something from her coat pocket, a photograph bent at the corners. It was a grainy image of a much younger Natalie standing next to an older man in a crisp suit. The man bore a passing resemblance to her, perhaps her father. But what caught Adam's eye was the sternness in his gaze. "My father," she confirmed, following his stare. "He was involved in some questionable activities. I grew up knowing pieces of it, never the full scope, but enough to realize he was a dangerous man. And he had his own plans for me." Adam frowned. "What does that have to do with your disappearance?" Natalie swallowed hard. Dad was deep in debt, and the people he owed were ruthless. When I told him I was pregnant, instead of being supportive, he threatened to use my pregnancy as leverage. He wanted to force me into an arranged relationship with someone who could bail him out. A man old enough to be my grandfather. It was a business deal, pure and simple. Adam's face hardened. The idea that someone would treat Natalie like a pawn in a financial chess game made his blood boil. "Why not come to me?" he demanded, trying to keep his voice low so as not to alarm the twins. "I would have done anything to protect you." She nodded, tears finally escaping her eyes. "I believed that once, Adam. But Dad wasn't just in debt. He was tangled with people who'd kill to get their money back. He made it clear that if I didn't comply, they could come after anyone close to me, and that meant you. I was young, scared, and I ran. I thought if I cut ties with everyone, Dad might leave you alone. And I was right, at least for a while." Adam slumped back in his seat, absorbing her story in stunned silence. He recalled certain threats he'd brushed off during his early years of building Titan Tech, anonymous messages warning him to stay away from a certain girl. At the time, he'd believed them to be random or targeted at some other aspect of his life. Now, the puzzle pieces clicked ominously into place. "You went off the grid," he said. "No phone, no address, no way for me to find you." She nodded. "I moved to another state under a false name, had the girls in a tiny rural hospital. I scraped by on small jobs, staying as invisible as possible. Over time, Dad's problems got worse, and eventually I heard rumors he didn't survive the fallout. And when he died, I thought maybe I could come back. But every year something seemed to happen. A new threat, a letter, a phone call that made me paranoid all over again. So I kept hiding, telling myself it was safer for everyone. Adam rubbed a hand across his face, anger warring with understanding. He could see the fear in her eyes was genuine, the regret raw. But that didn't erase the sense of betrayal or the pain at discovering he had children who'd grown up without him. "You should have called," he muttered. "Even once. You should have told me about them." "I know, I wanted to," she replied, choking up. "As soon as I realized my dad was gone and these criminals no longer had any direct leverage over me, I tried to reach out. But then I saw how successful you'd become, how you'd built this empire, Adam. I convinced myself it was too late, that you'd moved on. I was ashamed, and I didn't know if you'd want them in your life, not after so many years." He looked at her in disbelief. "Not want them? Natalie, they're my daughters. I might be furious, but they're still mine. How could you think I wouldn't want them?" A shaky smile tugged at her lips. "I was scared. I still am. But last month, Emma needed a specialist for a health scare. Nothing serious, thank God. But it made me realize I couldn't keep living in hiding. They deserved to know their father." She paused, looking toward the children's nook. "So here we are." Adam followed her gaze. Emma and Lily were sitting side by side at a small table, flipping through picture books. They peeked over occasionally as if to check if everything was okay. A pang of emotion tightened his chest. Their father, two little souls who had no idea what his world entailed or how drastically he could change their lives. He turned back to Natalie. "So you just showed up at the airport to ambush me with this news?" She managed a faint laugh. "Not exactly. I'd heard through a mutual acquaintance that you were heading overseas for a conference. I thought if I showed up unannounced, you wouldn't be able to simply dismiss me or ignore me." Adam grimaced. "Ignore you? Nat, you haven't exactly been around for me to ignore." She looked down. "I know, this was probably a terrible plan. But it's the only one I had." They both grew quiet. The airport speaker announced another round of delays and cancellations. Adam realized he was supposed to be on a plane right now, heading to close a multi-million-dollar deal. The gravity of missing such an opportunity gnawed at him, but not nearly as much as the realization that his entire life had shifted in the last hour. Deals could be renegotiated, but daughters, family, that was different. Running a hand over his hair, he let out a long breath. "Where are you staying tonight? Do the girls have everything they need?" Natalie bit her lip. "We don't have a solid plan. I spent most of my savings on these tickets. I thought we'd figure it out once you and I spoke. Maybe find a hotel?" A wave of protectiveness he couldn't deny welled up in Adam's chest. "You'll stay with me," he said, the words coming out more forcefully than he intended. "I have a suite at the Crescent Hotel near the downtown hub. There's plenty of room for the three of you." He half expected her to reject the offer out of pride, but she only nodded, relief flickering across her face. "Thank you." A swirl of conflicting thoughts still crowded Adam's mind. He wanted to press her for more details about her father's associates, about how she survived all these years, about the apparently never-ending chain of threats that had haunted her. But one look at Natalie's tired eyes told him she needed a rest. And the twins, well, his daughters, probably needed a sense of security more than anything else right now. He stood, extending a hand to help her up. The warmth of her palm against his sent a shiver of old memories rushing through him. For a split second, he saw the college library again, the hidden smile she'd give him behind a row of dusty books. Then he saw her vanish without a trace. The sting of betrayal still lingered, but a new hope flickered inside him. Could they find their way back to each other, or was the past too big of an obstacle to overcome? As they gathered the girls, Emma squealed in delight at seeing her father approach, while Lily gazed at him a moment longer, as if taking him in. He felt an unexpected sense of pride and joy. This was a new life chapter he hadn't asked for. but maybe it was the one he needed. Together, the four of them made their way out of the lounge, stepping into the swirl of travelers and blinking lights. The speaker crackled with flight updates, and the floor signs guided them toward baggage claim. The hum of overhead LEDs contrasted with the hustle and bustle below. Despite the chaos, Adam felt strangely calm, as though a path forward had opened up amidst the turmoil. He glanced down at Emma and Lily, each now holding one of his hands. Their small fingers fit against his large palm in a way that made his heart tighten with unnameable emotion. He offered a tentative smile. They smiled back, shy but hopeful, their shared dimpled cheeks lighting up in a way that momentarily banished every doubt he had. Even with so many unanswered questions, Adam couldn't deny the significance of this moment. In the midst of canceled flights, business anxieties, and 5 years of heartbreak, a family was taking shape, precarious, surprising, and real. A cold drizzle pelted the airport's glass-fronted exit as Adam stepped outside with Natalie and the twins. The unexpected chill made him instinctively wrap an arm around Emma, who shivered in her pink coat. On her other side, Lily huddled close to Natalie, pulling the hood of her own jacket tighter against the damp air. As taxis and private cars rolled up to the curb, Adam raised his hand to signal a sleek black sedan from his personal transport service. It glided forward like a shadow. The driver, a middle-aged man in a crisp uniform, quickly hopping out to assist with luggage. But Adam and Natalie had barely any luggage. She'd arrived with a single duffel bag, faded and scuffed at the corners, and the twins each had small backpacks filled with crayons and a couple of worn stuffed animals. The sight of such meager belongings twisted something in Adam's stomach. He was used to traveling with a wall of designer suitcases. His status as a successful CEO demanded it, or so he'd always believed. Now, seeing the reality of Natalie's life, a pang of guilt threaded through his thoughts. The driver opened the back door. Emma let out a little gasp of delight when she saw the plush leather seats inside. Lily watched quietly, eyes flicking to Adam every few seconds as if unsure of his role in her world. He smiled gently, crouching to meet her gaze. "Hop in," he said, voice soft but warm. "We'll be at the hotel before you know it." She studied his face for a moment, then nodded, sliding in next to her sister. Natalie followed, easing herself in with a visible mix of exhaustion and relief. Once Adam sank into the seat beside them, the driver shut the door and merged into the airport's departing traffic. Through the tinted windows, the night lights of the city glowed in streaks of white and red. No one spoke at first. The soft purr of the car's engine and the patter of rain filled the silence. Adam glanced at Natalie, who was gazing out the window, her expression unreadable. A swirl of conflicting emotions churned inside him, and he wondered if she felt the same. Here they were, side by side after all these years, but everything was different. Eventually, Emma broke the hush. She shifted closer to Adam, resting her small hand on his jacket sleeve. "Where are we going?" He turned his head and tried to smile. "A hotel called the Crescent. It's nice. Big rooms. There's a view of the city lights from the top floors." "Will there be room for Mommy, Lily, and me?" Emma asked shyly. Adam's heart gave a painful little twist. "Plenty," he promised. "I usually book a suite, enough space for all of us." "Wow," Lily murmured, as if the idea of so much space was both thrilling and scary. Natalie folded her arms across her lap, eyes flickering to the children. "Adam, thank you," she said quietly. "You don't have to do this. I know it's a lot." He cut her off gently, meeting her gaze. "They're my daughters, Nat, and whether I'm ready or not, I'm not going to push them away, or you." She swallowed, a tear threatening to escape. Emma, sensing her mother's emotion, nestled closer against her side. Adam watched them with a sense of tenderness he couldn't quite articulate. He was angry, yes, but also deeply protective. A single night at his hotel suite was just the start of how much he wanted to help. The car wove through downtown streets. Towering skyscrapers edged the boulevard on each side, their windows illuminated in patterns of gold and silver. Adam's phone vibrated on his lap. He glanced at the screen. His assistant, Marjorie, was calling for at least the 10th time that day. No doubt it was about the cancelled flight and the big overseas meeting. Guilt tugged at him. Titan Tech had poured months of negotiations into that venture, and here he was, off-grid for hours. But he couldn't bring himself to answer. Not yet. Instead, he hit the ignore button and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Beside him, Natalie noticed but said nothing, pressing her lips together in a silent question. Adam pretended not to see. The truth was, he had no idea how to explain his current reality to Marjorie, or to anyone else in his corporate world. My ex-girlfriend just appeared with twin daughters I never knew I had. I'm missing an urgent trip to figure out how to be a father overnight. It sounded surreal, even in his own head. Within minutes, the driver pulled up to the Crescent Hotel. The doorman, dressed in a crisp vest, hurried to greet them with an oversized umbrella, shielding them from the rain as they stepped onto the marble curb. As soon as the revolving doors glided open, the warm glow of the lobby lights welcomed them. Gold accents, polished floors, and tasteful floral arrangements marked this as one of the city's finest accommodations. A wave of familiarity washed over Adam. He spent so many nights here, holed up for conferences or working late. But this time, it felt different. He was walking in with a family. His family. He wasn't entirely sure how to carry himself, especially when Lily clung to his hand as they approached the reception desk. The manager, a polished woman named Celeste, who recognized Adam, offered a bright smile. "Mr. Hayes, good evening. We were expecting you for just the one night, correct?" She paused, eyeing the children. Adam cleared his throat. "I'll be extending my stay," he said, and the finality in his tone was obvious. "Please prepare the largest suite available for my family." Celeste nodded, discreetly hiding her surprise. "Certainly. Let me arrange that." She motioned to a bellhop who guided them to the elevator bank. The ride up to the 25th floor was silent, broken only by Emma's excited gasp when the elevator whooshed past floors in a blur of lit numbers. When they stepped out, they found themselves in a well-appointed hallway, plush carpeting muffling their footsteps. The bellhop opened the door to the suite, a large living area with a panoramic window overlooking the city skyline, a small kitchen, and 2 spacious bedrooms. A sense of pride flickered in Adam. He could provide comfort, at least. He just hoped comfort could bridge the years of separation. Natalie inhaled sharply upon entering, letting her fingertips brush over the modern furniture. "This is more than enough," she said softly. Her eyes darted to the windows where storm clouds churned in the distance. Lightning flickered, illuminating the horizon. The twins, after a hesitant pause, broke into whispered exclamations as they explored. Emma peeked into a bedroom, her voice echoing softly. "Lily, come look at the view." Lily joined her, both pressing their noses to the glass, marveling at the rain-lashed lights far below. Adam tipped the bellhop and quietly asked him to arrange a modest dinner, something kid-friendly, maybe chicken strips or pasta, plus some hot chocolate. Once alone with Natalie, he slipped his hands into his pockets, feeling strangely awkward. "I'll take the couch," he offered. "You and the girls can have the bedrooms. That's probably best." Natalie gave a small nod. "If you're sure. I don't want to inconvenience you more than—" He raised a hand gently. "Stop thanking me for every little thing. This is the least I can do." She lowered her eyes, as if overwhelmed by relief or shame, or maybe both. "Adam," she started, "I know I have no right to ask, but the girls, they've never had a father figure in their life. Could you spend some time with them tomorrow? Maybe breakfast, or even just reading stories so they can get comfortable around you?" A rush of warmth mingled with uncertainty. So much about this was foreign. He knew how to negotiate multi-million-dollar contracts, but reading bedtime stories to two 5-year-olds? That was a world away from his usual routine. Yet the yearning in Natalie's face, combined with his own pull to the twins, made his decision easy. "Of course," he agreed softly. "I want to get to know them." Natalie's face lit with a fragile smile, the tension in her shoulders easing. "Thank you," she whispered, the words charged with genuine gratitude. A knock sounded at the door and room service arrived with covered trays. Adam and Natalie ushered the twins to the small dining table, helping them settle into chairs that seemed almost too big for their tiny frames. A warm aroma of roasted chicken and buttered bread filled the air. Emma's eyes lit up, and Lily's expression softened, as if the novelty of a fancy meal in a hotel suite thrilled them just enough to break through any lingering nervousness. "Can we say grace, Mommy?" Emma asked, glancing shyly at Adam. Natalie nodded, shooting him an apologetic look as if unsure how he felt about it. They bowed their heads. The twins mumbled a short, simple "thank you," their voices as sweet and pure as a lullaby. When they finished, Adam found himself smiling. Despite everything, there was something comforting about their innocence. They ate in relative calm. The storm outside intensified, lightning illuminating the skyline in electric flashes. The girls, though, were far more engrossed in their meal and in sneaking peeks at Adam. Whenever he caught them looking, they giggled and ducked their heads. Occasionally, Lily whispered something to Emma, who nodded enthusiastically. Natalie observed this with a soft smile, clearly relieved that their introduction to Adam wasn't met with fear. After dinner, the twins grew sleepy-eyed. Natalie guided them to one of the bedrooms, leaving Adam alone with the remnants of the meal and the gently flickering city lights. He sipped a glass of water, noticing how his phone buzzed again and again with messages from his assistant. Urgent requests for updates on that missed flight and the rescheduled meeting. But for once, Titan Tech's issues didn't feel paramount. His entire focus was on the two little girls now occupying the next room. When Natalie returned, Adam asked quietly, "Everything okay?" She nodded. "They're tired from traveling and all the excitement. I think they'll be asleep soon." He stood by the window, pressing a hand against the cool glass. Raindrops slid down in erratic trails, mirroring the turbulence in his own chest. He inhaled slowly, then turned to face Natalie. "So, what comes next?" he asked. "That's what I've been asking myself all night," she admitted, crossing her arms. "I know it isn't fair to just show up and disrupt your life. If you want us to leave after tonight, I'll figure something out. I'm not going to force the girls on you. Or us." He shook his head, a tinge of frustration darkening his features. "They're not a burden, Natalie. Neither are you. Yes, this is a shock to my system, but I want to be there for them. For you too, if you'll let me." A pause, his voice turning heavier. "But we need to be honest about everything. No more secrets or half-truths." She looked down, twisting a ring on her finger. "Agreed." A hush settled, and the only sounds were the muted patter of rain against the window and the distant hum of city traffic. Adam noticed how the soft hotel lighting caught in her hair, how weariness etched fine lines near her eyes. Once they had been carefree students, laughing over late-night takeout and dreaming of the future. Now life had hurled them in opposite directions, only to collide them here again, with children and a mountain of unresolved wounds. "Get some rest," Adam finally said, his voice gentle but firm. "We'll talk more tomorrow." Natalie hesitated, then nodded, heading to the bedroom where the twins were dozing. Before disappearing behind the door, she lingered just a moment, meeting Adam's eyes in silent acknowledgement of the strange, fragile hope that hung between them. Left alone, Adam surveyed the suite, the half-eaten plates, the shadowy corners illuminated by occasional flashes of lightning. On the small couch where he'd bed down for the night, the plush pillows looked unfamiliar and unwelcoming. Yet the memories of Emma and Lily's bright smiles warmed him in a way he'd never felt in all his years chasing business triumphs. It was as if the future had opened a doorway he hadn't known existed. He retrieved his phone, finally pressing Marjorie's number. It was time to handle at least the minimal damage control, but even as he prepared to navigate the corporate fallout, one thought guided him. No business deal could outweigh the discovery that he was a father to two precious girls. Tomorrow would bring fresh questions, new complications, but tonight he felt an unspoken promise, one that whispered it might all be worth it. Morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Crescent Hotel's suite, illuminating the city skyline in soft shades of gray and gold. Adam stirred on the couch, blinking as he tried to get his bearings. It took a moment before the events of the previous night came rushing back, the cancelled flight, Natalie's sudden reappearance, and the two little girls asleep in the next room, his daughters. He sat up slowly, massaging the faint stiffness in his neck. Normally he woke in the crisp comfort of a high-end bed or a penthouse bedroom. Sleeping on a couch, even a luxurious one, was foreign enough to rouse small aches. But something else filled him with a sense of anticipation he couldn't quite name. An odd mixture of nerves, excitement, and trepidation spurred him to stand and quietly tiptoe toward the bedrooms. A quick glance at the clock on the TV console showed it was just after 7 a.m. Not too early, but not late enough that the twins would definitely be awake. He debated whether to check on them. Would they be startled if they saw him first thing in the morning? He had no idea how fatherhood protocols worked. He ended up gently turning the door handle to the bedroom on the left, the one where he remembered Natalie settling the girls. The door creaked softly. Inside, morning light bathed two tiny forms curled under a thick duvet, blonde brown curls peeking out. Emma was sprawled on her back, mouth slightly open in sleep, while Lily had latched onto a stuffed bunny, hugging it tight against her chest. Adam's gaze lingered on them, marveling at their smallness, at the rhythmic rise and fall of their breaths. A movement on the other side of the room drew his attention. Natalie sat in a plush chair by the window, wearing a hotel robe pulled tight around her waist. She'd clearly been up for some time. Her hair was still damp from a recent shower, and she held a steaming cup of coffee in her hands. She offered a tentative smile, gesturing for him to come in. Quietly, Adam stepped into the room, letting the door close behind him. His eyes flickered again to Emma and Lily. 5 years of unshared moments. He wondered if he'd ever stop feeling that pang of lost time. "They're heavy sleepers," Natalie whispered, taking a careful sip of her coffee. "Usually up by 7:30, but with all the traveling yesterday, they might sleep in a bit." Adam nodded, slipping his hands into the pockets of his lounge pants. He'd changed out of his wrinkled suit at some point during the night, but he hadn't bothered with anything more formal. "That's fine," he murmured, glancing from the twins back to Natalie. "How are you feeling? Get any rest?" A wry smile tugged at her lips. "Some. Mostly I just lay awake, thinking." She paused, lowering her voice even more. "Adam, about last night. I know we only had a chance to scratch the surface. There's so much we need to talk about. I don't want to ambush you again, but we should figure out what comes next." He nodded, stepping closer so their conversation wouldn't disturb the sleeping girls. "I agree. Maybe once they're awake we can head down for breakfast. We'll talk then, away from the questions and the tension." Natalie's gaze flickered to Emma's small hand splayed across the sheets. "I appreciate that," she said. "They'll feel safer if they see we can be together, at least in some way." Together. The word hung in the air, heavy with implication. Adam found himself looking at Natalie more closely than he had the night before. She looked older, of course. There were faint lines around her eyes and an air of weariness he didn't remember from their carefree college days. Yet there was also a quiet strength in her posture, in the way she balanced coffee in one hand and motherly vigilance in her eyes. Before he could speak, Emma stirred, letting out a tiny yawn. Her eyelids fluttered open, and she blinked at the sight of Adam by the bed. For an instant, confusion crossed her face. Then she lit up. "Hi," she whispered, voice still threaded with sleep. Natalie set down her cup and moved to the bed. "Morning, sweet pea. Remember where we are?" Emma rubbed her eyes. "Hotel," she said slowly, looking around. Then she caught sight of Adam again. Her cheeks dimpled into a small smile. "Good morning, Daddy?" Adam's heart clenched at the word. He managed a gentle smile in return. "Good morning, Emma. Did you sleep okay?" She nodded, pushing up on her elbows. Lily, awakened by the voices, rolled over and blinked up at them. Adam tensed slightly. Lily was the quieter one, and he sensed her hesitation might run deeper. But she just gazed at him, then at Natalie, and sat up as well. "I'm hungry," Lily said softly, looking to her mother first before letting her eyes dart to Adam. "Perfect," Adam replied, relieved at the normalcy of a child's morning hunger. "How about we all go downstairs for breakfast? They have waffles and fruit, maybe even pastries. Sound good?" Lily's expression brightened fractionally. Emma, on the other hand, gave a tiny whoop of excitement. Quiet enough not to break the calm of the morning, but enough to confirm her enthusiasm. Natalie eased herself to her feet, smoothing out the robe. "Girls, let's get dressed, okay? Then we'll meet Daddy in the living area. We'll go downstairs together." Adam hesitated, part of him wanting to help, but he realized that rummaging through their clothes or assisting them might be stepping too far into unknown territory for the moment. So he just nodded and slipped out of the room, pulling the door closed behind him. He took a moment to compose himself in the hallway, exhaling a long, slow breath. This was all so new. Would he ever feel comfortable in these fatherly shoes? The business world had always been his domain. He knew how to handle board meetings, strategize takeovers, impress top clients. But something as simple as picking out clothes for his children? He felt suddenly clumsy. Pushing those thoughts aside, he returned to the suite's main area, opening his laptop to check on the avalanche of emails from Titan Tech. As he scanned the headlines, urgent and re-urgent repeated over and over, he saw a swirl of references to the missed flight, the postponed deal negotiations, the CEO of a partnering firm demanding a phone call. He rubbed his temples. This fiasco could cost him millions if not handled carefully, yet he'd never been more certain that priorities in life could shift overnight. He dashed off a quick note to Marjorie. "Marjorie, thank you for your patience. I'm dealing with a personal emergency. Please reschedule any in-person meetings for next week or arrange for a virtual conference if absolutely necessary. I'll speak with the overseas partners personally when I'm able, hopefully later today." Adam. He hit send just as he heard the bedroom door open again. Emma scampered out first, dressed in a pair of bright yellow leggings and a striped t-shirt, her hair hastily braided by Natalie. Lily followed, wearing denim overalls and a shy smile. Natalie came last, clothed in a simple blouse and jeans that looked slightly loose on her slender frame. Adam closed his laptop. "All set?" he asked, hoping his voice conveyed the same warmth he felt inside. "Yep," Emma chirped, bounding over to him. "Can we really have waffles?" He chuckled, nodding. "Absolutely, let's go find those waffles." Natalie shrugged on a light jacket and grabbed the girls' smaller coats. The family, Adam still marveled that the word now included him, headed into the hallway, descending to the hotel's restaurant via elevator. The lounge area for breakfast was elegantly arranged, with tall windows overlooking a small urban garden below. A cluster of well-dressed guests conversed quietly over coffee and pastries. As they approached the hostess stand, Adam slid an arm protectively around Lily's shoulder, steering her gently. Natalie gave a name to the hostess, who guided them to a table near the window. The twins both stared wide-eyed at the linen tablecloth and sparkling glassware, clearly impressed. Once seated, the girls lit up at the menu. Emma traced her finger over pictures of pancakes and fruit bowls. Lily studied the list with silent intensity. Adam signaled the waiter, then looked to Natalie. "Any preferences?" he asked. "We can order a bunch of things to share." She glanced at the girls. "They usually like fruit and yogurt or maybe scrambled eggs, but well, waffles are a treat," she said, smiling wryly. Adam grinned. "Waffles it is. And some fresh fruit, eggs, coffee for the grown-ups?" Nodding, Natalie turned to the waiter. "And please, some juice for the girls." The waiter jotted it all down and vanished. The early morning crowd in the restaurant was sparse, mostly business travelers checking email on tablets. A subtle tension still threaded between Adam and Natalie, reminding them that while they might be playing the part of a normal family, the real conversation loomed on the horizon. "Adam," Natalie began once the waiter delivered drinks, "maybe after breakfast we can take the girls to the park or somewhere calmer. Then you and I could find a moment alone to talk. I really don't want them overhearing anything complicated." He sensed the weight behind her words. The twins, oblivious, were giggling over the pretty swirl patterns in their orange juice. "Yes," he agreed. "There's a quiet park a few blocks away. We can walk there. Fresh air might do us good." Natalie offered a grateful look. "Thank you." Emma, half lost in her own world of excitement, cut in. "What's the park like, Daddy? Are there swings? A slide?" Something about the casual use of Daddy still startled him. Every time the words slipped from their mouths, it hit him with a profound sense of responsibility and an ache for everything he'd missed. "I'm not sure, but we'll check it out," he said gently, forcing a small smile. "If not, we'll find something fun to do." She beamed, turning to Lily as if they were plotting a grand adventure. The waffles arrived shortly afterward, piled with fresh berries and whipped cream, along with scrambled eggs and crisp bacon. The twins' squeals of delight drew a few amused glances from nearby patrons, but Adam only felt pride. He'd never realized how satisfying it could be to watch children relish something as simple as breakfast. Still, the undercurrent of tension remained. Every so often, Natalie and Adam exchanged looks that spoke of more serious matters: her father's debts, the criminals who had driven her into hiding, the fate of their newly reunited family. Emma and Lily, thankfully, seemed blissfully unaware. When the plates were emptied and the last bit of maple syrup was devoured, the girls wriggled in their seats, anxious to explore. Adam signaled for the check, quietly settling it without fanfare. If Natalie noticed, she didn't comment, though a faint frown creased her brow, perhaps at the reminder that her finances weren't on par with his. "All right, you two," Adam said, standing and helping Lily off her chair. "Ready for that walk?" They chorused an enthusiastic "yes" and bounded ahead, holding hands as they reached the restaurant's door. Adam lingered briefly at the hostess stand, who offered him a polite nod goodbye. Meanwhile, Natalie hovered by the exit, a soft worry on her features. He approached her, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "We'll figure it out," he murmured, meeting her eyes. "All of it." The corner of her mouth quirked into something resembling hope. "Thank you," she replied. Then she turned to guide the girls toward the elevator. Adam followed, steeling himself for whatever revelations or complications the day might bring. He couldn't deny that a swirl of anxiety and longing coursed through him. But overshadowing it all was a powerful, unexpected sense of promise. He had lost 5 years, but maybe, just maybe, there was a chance to rebuild. The air outside was brisk but pleasantly so, the rain having passed during the early morning hours. Clouds still lingered, drifting across the sky in gray tufts, but an occasional burst of sunshine broke through, warming the sidewalks. Adam led the way, his shoes tapping a steady rhythm against the pavement. Right behind him, Emma and Lily skipped along, giggling at passing pigeons and pointing to the bright advertisements on nearby buildings. Natalie walked beside them, her arms loosely folded, eyes scanning the street as though every new block held some unknown danger. Despite the city's normal clamor, Traffic whirring by, pedestrians absorbed in their daily commutes, Adam felt strangely at peace. There was something heartening about seeing the twins in daylight, not just as sleepy silhouettes in a hotel bed. Each time they looked up at him, beaming with childlike trust, a twinge of awe ran through him. "I'm their father." The phrase still felt surreal. They passed a flower shop with vibrant bouquets displayed on the sidewalk, and Emma tugged at Adam's sleeve. "Look at the roses!" she exclaimed, pressing her nose against the shop's window. Lily leaned in too, wide-eyed. Adam paused, glancing at Natalie. She shrugged slightly, a small, playful smile tugging at her lips. "Do you want to pick out a flower?" he asked the girls, uncertain if that was even a thing children typically wanted. They nodded in unison. So the four of them popped inside, greeted by a sweet, earthy scent. Rows of roses, tulips, and daisies lined the displays. Emma carefully pointed to a bright yellow daisy, while Lily chose a pale pink rose. Adam paid for them, handing each twin her chosen bloom. The girls lit up like they'd been given a precious treasure, carefully cupping the flowers in their hands as they continued their walk. "It's silly, isn't it?" Natalie murmured to Adam once they were back on the sidewalk. "They get so excited over small things." He shook his head, his voice low. "Not silly at all. I envy that innocence." And he hesitated. "I've never really gotten to do these simple moments with them. Feels important somehow." Natalie's eyes flickered with emotion. She nodded but said nothing, and they walked on. After a few more blocks, the skyscrapers gave way to a quieter area where a public park sprawled across several acres. Tall, leafy trees lined the perimeter, their branches still heavy with lingering droplets from the recent rain. A winding path led to a small playground set, a modest structure with a slide, a pair of swings, and a climbing bar. At the park's entrance, Adam paused, watching the twins run forward, almost squealing with excitement. A few other children were already playing, their parents chatting on nearby benches. It was a scene Adam had never imagined himself a part of, a father at a playground, yet here he was. "You want to join them?" Adam asked, glancing at Natalie. She looked around, scanning the faces of the few people present. Once satisfied there was no immediate threat, she gave a subdued smile. "Sure, but let's sit for a bit too. We can keep an eye on them while we talk." They strolled over to a bench beneath a sprawling oak tree. The ground was still damp, but the seat was relatively dry. From this vantage point, they could see Emma and Lily climbing the small set of steps that led to the top of the slide. Emma went first, arms raised triumphantly, while Lily followed more cautiously. Adam couldn't help but grin at the sight. A gentle wind tousled his hair as he leaned forward, forearms resting on his knees. "They seem so happy," he mused, feeling the corners of his mouth lift unconsciously. "They are," Natalie agreed softly, "and that's because, despite everything, I tried to shield them from the worst. I wanted them to feel safe." He nodded, gaze still on the playground. Then he cleared his throat. "So, about last night, you said your father got entangled with dangerous people. Are we talking criminal organizations? Loan sharks?" Her expression grew guarded, but she didn't shy away from the question. "My father was involved in a web of debts. The man he owed money to was, well, let's call him an underworld figure, a wealthy, influential one. Dad gambled away his savings, our savings, and used connections in shady deals to stay afloat. By the time I found out I was pregnant, he was desperate. He arranged a marriage between me and this man's nephew, a powerful figure in his own right, hoping to wipe out his debt." Adam inhaled sharply, fists tensing at his sides. "That's vile. And you were just property to be traded?" She nodded, her voice trembling slightly. "Yes, in their eyes, I was a means to an end. My father cared about me in a twisted way, but his fear of crossing these people was stronger than any paternal instinct. He said if I refused, they'd come after me, or you?" She looked at Adam, eyes filled with regret. "He knew I loved you, that we'd been talking about a future. Threatening you was his trump card." Adam's jaw tightened. Memories of mysterious messages and silent phone calls he'd brushed off back then flooded his mind. "So you vanished to protect me?" Natalie lowered her gaze. "Partly, but also, I was scared. I was young and pregnant, and everything was spiraling out of control. I thought disappearing was my only choice." He let out a breath, trying to calm the anger that simmered beneath his sympathy. "And after he died? Why stay away so long?" "Because the threat didn't disappear with him," she explained. "His enemies were still out there. They believed Dad might have hidden money or evidence that could implicate them. They suspected I knew something. Even if that money never existed, they considered me a loose end." She paused, voice heavy. "I moved constantly for the girl's safety. We never stayed in one place too long. The smallest sign that someone recognized me and we were gone again." Adam frowned, piecing it together. "Which is why you never reached out. You were afraid they'd trace you through any contact with me." Natalie nodded, tears threatening to form. "Yes, but then we got lucky in a sense. Over time, their interest waned. New rivalries, bigger problems, or maybe they just decided I wasn't worth the effort. When Emma fell ill recently, I realized I couldn't keep living in fear. She needed specialized care. That meant applying for health coverage under our real names, checking into better hospitals. And I thought, maybe enough time had passed that it'd be okay to find you." A storm of emotions battered Adam's chest. Anger at the injustice, that she'd been forced to live like a fugitive. Sadness for the lost years, the birthdays, the smiles, the first words. Relief. They were here now, alive and safe. And also a flare of protectiveness that was so strong it nearly left him breathless. "What if these people come after you again?" he asked quietly. "What if they learn you're back?" She offered a shaky exhale. "I don't know. I've had no sign of them for a long while. They might have moved on or gotten locked up for something else. Crime syndicates shift, sometimes violently. The ones who threatened us might not even be around anymore. It's impossible to say with certainty." Adam's mind churned, recalling the influence he now wielded. Titan Tech had connections across industries. He might not be a street enforcer or anything like that, but he had access to high-level security consultants, discreet investigators, people who specialized in corporate intelligence. Could he provide safety in a more official capacity? He tucked that thought away for later. "I want you to let me help. If there's any risk, I can set up security. Hire people to keep watch, to make sure you and the girls are safe." Natalie looked uncertain. "Hiring security might put a spotlight on us, but maybe it's an option. Let's see how things unfold." A shriek of delight interrupted their heavy talk. On the playground, Lily had conquered the top of the slide, and Emma stood at the bottom cheering. Lily whooshed down with a grin that lit her entire face, landing in a fit of giggles. Emma clapped her hands, pulling Lily to her feet. The two girls then darted toward the swings, hair bouncing as they ran. The sight squeezed Adam's heart. Pure innocence in a chaotic world. He turned back to Natalie. "Whatever we decide, I don't want you to vanish again. I can't go through that a second time. And the girls, they deserve stability now." A tear rolled down Natalie's cheek. She wiped it quickly, nodding. "I'm not running anymore," she whispered. "I promise." They sat in silence for a moment, letting the words settle. The hum of city life felt distant, overshadowed by children's laughter echoing across the playground. Eventually, Adam cleared his throat. "So, next steps? Do you have a place to stay after the hotel?" She shook her head. "We left everything behind when we came here to find you. My savings are minimal. I was living off odd jobs and leftover money from the last town. I was hoping..." We could figure something out, maybe rent an apartment. But the city is expensive and I don't want to uproot the girls again if we can avoid it." An idea formed in Adam's mind, though he weighed it carefully. "I own a property on the outskirts of the city. It's not a mansion, it's more of a cozy house in a gated community. I bought it a couple of years back as an investment but never lived there. It's quiet, has good schools nearby. You could stay there, temporarily or however long is needed, rent-free if that helps." Natalie's eyes widened. "Adam, that's too generous. You don't have to—" "I want to," he insisted, voice firm. "It's sitting empty. Why not let it be a home for our daughters? For you. Unless you'd rather live somewhere else, but I can at least help with finances until you get on your feet." She hesitated, a part of her bristling at the idea of dependence. Yet the relief in her expression was unmistakable. "If you're sure, maybe that would be best for the girls. They'd have a stable place, a chance to start school properly instead of being homeschooled on the run." He nodded. "They'd have neighbors, parks, a sense of normalcy, and it'd give us time to figure out what role He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. "What role I can play in their daily lives." Natalie reached out tentatively, resting a hand on Adam's forearm. He felt the warmth of her skin, and a wave of memories of their younger love washed over him. Late-night library study sessions, spontaneous coffee runs, the unstoppable laughter they once shared. The betrayal still lingered, but he could almost feel the old connection flickering back to life beneath the ashes. "Thank you," she said softly. "I know this is all so sudden for you, and I'm sorry for every day you missed." He covered her hand with his own. "We can't change the past," he replied gently, "but we can decide what happens next." Just then, Emma came racing over, pink cheeks flushed with excitement. "Daddy, can you push me on the swing?" she asked breathlessly. Lily stood a few steps behind, fiddling with the daisy in her hands. Adam rose, a tender smile spreading across his face. "Sure, princess," he said, the endearment slipping out before he could overthink it. Emma's whole face lit up, and she grabbed his hand, dragging him toward the swings. Natalie watched them go, her hand falling to her lap, tears of mingled relief and regret still glistening in her eyes. Maybe, just maybe, they had a chance to build something new out of the fragments of what once was. But even as she felt hope tug at her heart, an uneasy feeling prickled at the back of her mind. The life she'd led for 5 years, full of caution and hidden tracks, wasn't so easily shed. Still, in that moment, seeing Adam gently lift Emma onto the swing and hearing Lily's quiet laughter as she approached, Natalie allowed herself to dream. A dream of safety, of family, of a future not defined by fear. A few days passed in a gentle blur of new routines and cautious optimism. Adam extended his stay at the Crescent Hotel longer than planned, wanting Natalie and the twins to feel secure while arrangements were made for them to move into the house on the outskirts of the city. Though he missed important business meetings and endured a barrage of frantic messages from his assistant, Marjorie, he discovered a strange sense of calm in playing the role of father, even if it felt tentative and unpracticed. Most mornings he'd wake early to check his emails and make quick calls with the Titan Tech board. Afterward, he'd transition to a very different set of responsibilities, helping Emma and Lily order their breakfast. One wants pancakes, the other wants cereal, but we only have time for one, and assisting with the various small tasks that came with caring for 2 spirited 5-year-olds. Sometimes the girls would squabble over a toy or fuss about who got to press the elevator button. Each moment, no matter how trivial, was a reminder of how quickly he was being thrust into parenthood. Natalie, for her part, showed signs of wariness even in the safe confines of the hotel. She'd glance over her shoulder in the lobby, keep the curtains drawn in their suite, and check and double-check hallways before stepping out. Adam didn't comment on her vigilance, recognizing it as a habit formed from years of watching for threats. Instead, he quietly spoke to the hotel staff. ensuring their privacy and reinforcing that no one was to share details of his extended stay. Despite these tensions, Emma and Lily thrived on the newfound stability. They loved exploring the hotel's corridors and seeing their reflections in the gleaming marble floors. One evening, Adam arranged a small movie night for them in the suite's living room, pulling up cartoons on his laptop. The twins snuggled into pillows and blankets, giggling at silly characters and occasionally asking Adam to explain a joke they didn't understand. Natalie sat off to the side, her expression pensive but soft. Every so often her gaze would drift to Adam, and he'd sense the unspoken gratitude that mingled with lingering guilt in her eyes. By the third morning, Adam had hired a private security consultant, an acquaintance he trusted from corporate investigations, to discreetly run background checks on any active criminal cases linked to Natalie's father or his former associates. The man, Cole, promised quick results, but cautioned Adam that if these underworld figures were still operational, they might keep low profiles. Adam merely thanked him and insisted on thoroughness. He wasn't about to risk the twins' safety. Late on that same morning, when Emma and Lily were momentarily engrossed in a craft kit the hotel staff had kindly supplied, cutting colored paper into shapes and gluing them into whimsical collages, Adam approached Natalie with a determined look. "Mind if we take a walk?" he asked, quietly so the girls wouldn't overhear. "Just the two of us. I asked the concierge if there's a private lounge area we can use. The girls will be fine here with the art supplies, and I'll let the staff know to look out for them." She hesitated, glancing at the children. "I don't like leaving them. It'll only be 15 minutes, Adam reassured. "I just need a bit of privacy to discuss something important. We'll be close by." Natalie exhaled, then nodded. Together they informed the twins they'd step away briefly. Emma made a dramatic show of disappointment. "But, Daddy, look at this cool flower I made," yet quickly recovered when he promised to be back in time to see her masterpiece. Lily, more subdued, simply nodded, focusing on gluing a paper star onto her collage. A few moments later, Adam and Natalie were seated in a quiet corner of the hotel's executive lounge. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a panoramic view of the city, with cars weaving through streets like tiny insects. The hush here was broken only by the subdued hum of air conditioning and the distant rattle of a coffee machine where a lone attendant stood. Adam leaned forward, resting his elbows on the small round table. "I spoke with a friend of mine," he began, choosing his words carefully. "He's looking into any leftover threats from your father's past. I need to know if there's even a slim chance of danger." Natalie's expression tightened. "I understand. I want the same answers." She paused, curling her hands around the cup of tea she'd taken from the lounge. "I appreciate you doing this. It means a lot. But what if it stirs up attention?" He shrugged slightly. "Cole is discreet. This won't be a public inquiry. If there's nothing to find, great. If there's something lurking, we need to be prepared." She nodded, her eyes drifting to the window. "I keep telling myself they've forgotten about me, that there's no reason for them to bother with us now, especially since my father's gone. But I've lived so long in fear, it's hard to believe it can just vanish." Adam reached across the table, touching her wrist gently. "We'll deal with it together." The words sounded firm, but underneath, he wrestled with his own insecurities. He was, after all, navigating a world he'd never anticipated, a realm of fatherhood and hidden dangers. Natalie turned her hand over, her palm touching his. The contact lingered, both comforting and electric. She swallowed. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how to repay you for all this. The hotel, the house, looking into my father's enemies." He shook his head. "Don't talk about repayment. The girls are mine too. And as for you, Nat, we have history. None of this is your fault." Her gaze dropped to their hands. "Some part of it feels like my fault," she admitted, voice low. "I made decisions, ran away, stayed silent, that kept you in the dark. You have every right to resent me." Adam exhaled, a faint tremor in his breath. He did resent her, or at least he had. The initial shock and anger had softened into a complicated stew of empathy, regret, and renewed affection. But his frustration still flickered beneath the surface. I won't lie. Finding out I lost 5 years with them still hurts. But I'm trying to see it from your perspective. You were scared, alone. I can't pretend I'd have acted differently if I believed you were in danger. Her eyes glistened. I don't want pity. I just hope you can forgive me, eventually. He squeezed her hand gently. I'm working on it. A pause. We have a future to build if we choose to. Let's focus on that. Their eyes met in a silent understanding that spoke of both pain and potential healing. After a moment, Natalie cleared her throat, as if shaking off the gravity of the topic. So, about the house, when can we see it? Adam leaned back, relieved at the shift. I can arrange for us to visit tomorrow. It's unfurnished, but we can pick out furniture, decorate the twins' room, whatever you want. I want them to feel at home right away. A ghost of a smile touched Natalie's lips. They'll love it. Then she frowned. But Adam, are you sure about... He anticipated her objection. Paying for everything? Yes, I'm sure. Look, I know this might be uncomfortable for you, but I have the resources. Money isn't an issue. Providing a safe environment for them is my priority. She nodded, though her expression revealed lingering uncertainty. All right, thank you. They sat in companionable silence for a few moments, lost in thought. Finally, Adam inhaled and asked what had been nagging at him for days. What about legalities? The twins' birth certificates, last names? We should probably sort that out. Natalie bit her lip. Officially, they have my maiden name, Bryant. I never pursued child support or declared a father on legal documents because I was hiding, but that means, in a legal sense, you're not recognized as their dad. She grimaced. I know that's not fair. It was a safety measure. Adam's gaze flickered, a mix of sadness and resolve. Then we handle it. If you're comfortable, I'd like to be on record as their father, not just for custody reasons, but for them. So it's not a secret. They deserve that recognition. Tears threatened to well in Natalie's eyes, but she blinked them back. Yes, of course. We'll have to see how to navigate it without drawing unwanted attention, but I'd like that too. He nodded, satisfied at the honest conversation. We'll go step by step, okay? Get them settled, check for threats, handle the paperwork, and in the meantime, I want to keep learning how to be, well, a dad. She released a shaky laugh, a sound caught between relief and sorrow. You're doing better than you think. They fell quiet, hands still joined. Outside the window, the city spread out in vast complexity, a tapestry of concrete and glass, of opportunity and hidden dangers. The metaphor wasn't lost on Adam. Their newly formed family faced a landscape just as intricate. They would have to traverse it with caution, trust, and a willingness to adapt. Eventually, a distant chime indicated the hour. Natalie gently withdrew her hand from Adam's. We should get back. The twins might wonder where we went. He nodded, rising. Let's go. They found Emma and Lily exactly where they'd left them, now proudly displaying their paper collages to a bemused waiter who'd stopped by to deliver complimentary cookies. The twins beamed when Adam and Natalie walked in, babbling about their art and offering the cookies for inspection. Adam knelt down, praise on his lips. These are amazing. Did you draw that flower? Emma nodded enthusiastically. Mommy showed me how to color the petals, she said, and Lily pointed out the shapes she'd glued. In that instant, surrounded by paper scraps, cookie crumbs, and children's laughter, Adam felt a surge of hope he'd rarely experienced in his polished, business-centric life. Yes, uncertainties loomed. Secrets lay buried in Natalie's past. A corporate empire demanded his attention, but here, with these small hands tugging at his sleeve and the woman he once loved standing alongside him, life felt unexpectedly full. Stepping forward, he ruffled Lily's hair. "We'll bring these collages home, yeah? Put them on the walls for everyone to see." "Home?" Lily echoed, eyes wide. "Where?" He exchanged a glance with Natalie. "We'll show you soon," he promised, voice husky with emotion. "A place just for us." Lily's face lit up and Emma squealed in delight. As Natalie watched, her own eyes shimmered with cautious joy. None of them spoke the obvious truth. They still had no idea what obstacles might lie ahead. But for the first time in a long while, they dared to imagine a future in which the four of them might belong to each other, safe in a quiet house at the city's edge. A crisp, bright morning found Adam, Natalie, and the twins pulling up to the gate of a quiet suburban community on the very edge of the city. The houses here were tasteful and modern, each with neat lawns and small flower beds, fronted by a winding sidewalk that exuded a calm, friendly atmosphere. It was a world away from the bustle of the downtown streets and the polished corridors of the Crescent Hotel. The security guard at the gatehouse recognized Adam immediately. He'd visited once or twice in the past to check on the property, though he'd never stayed there. A quick wave and a friendly nod, and the arm lifted to allow them through. As the sedan rolled down the tree-lined street, Emma and Lily perched forward in their seats, peering out the windows. "Look at that house," Emma breathed, spotting one with pastel shutters and a quirky garden gnome. Lily merely gazed, her quiet awe marked by eyes widening at each new sight. Natalie, sitting up front with Adam, twisted to see their reactions. She caught Adam's slight grin and gave him a soft smile in return, two parents reveling in the delight of their children. They came to a gentle stop in front of a two-story home with a compact front yard, the driveway wide enough for a couple of cars. The house itself had a simple elegance, pale gray siding, white trim, and large windows that promised plenty of light. A small porch framed the entrance, and an old-fashioned hanging lantern swayed lightly in the breeze. "This is it," Adam announced, cutting the engine. His voice held a mixture of pride and nervous anticipation. Though he'd purchased the place as an investment, he suddenly found himself wanting Natalie and the twins to love it, truly love it, as a potential sanctuary. He hopped out, then opened the back door for Emma and Lily. They scrambled onto the driveway, eyes sweeping across the yard and the neighboring houses. Natalie emerged next, drawing in a slow breath. "It's so quiet here," she murmured. "Peaceful." Adam gave a short nod, fishing a set of keys from his pocket. "That's what I was hoping for. No heavy traffic, no glaring city lights." His gaze flicked to Natalie. "And, hopefully, a sense of safety." Her expression softened in gratitude. "Let's go in?" The twins squealed and raced ahead, stopping short on the small porch. Adam unlocked the front door. There was a momentary beep as the security system recognized his passcode. He gently pushed the door open. "Welcome to, well, our potential home," he said, glancing around the foyer. The air inside was slightly stale from being unoccupied, but sunshine streamed in through open blinds, illuminating the hardwood floors and cream-colored walls. The foyer led into a spacious living room on the right, and a short hallway to the left opened into a modest kitchen, still bare of appliances beyond a built-in oven and stove. Emma and Lily began to explore instantly. They tiptoed into the living room, their voices echoing in the emptiness. "Look at this big space," Emma declared, twirling in a circle. Lily tested her voice with a small "hello," giggling at the echo. They scampered over to the sliding glass doors at the back, which led to a fenced backyard. A patch of grass, not too large, but enough for two children to run around in. Natalie, meanwhile, trailed behind Adam, taking in every detail, the unadorned walls, the bare light fixtures, the lack of furniture. "We'll need to buy couches, tables, chairs, everything, really," she noted, half to herself. Adam nodded. "I've already arranged for a decorator to show you samples if you'd like, but if you prefer, we can tackle this piece by piece ourselves." Natalie offered a slight smile. "Maybe a mix of both. I don't want to overwhelm you with trying to pick out everything, but I'd like the twins to choose their bedroom colors at least. They can do that, Adam agreed warmly. He led her down the short hallway, pointing to a door on the left. Small bathroom here, a coat closet on the right, and the kitchen at the end. They entered the kitchen, which was spacious enough to fit a dining table. Its cabinets were white, the countertops a neutral gray stone. A large window over the sink looked out onto the backyard. Natalie ran a hand over the countertop, a thoughtful expression on her face. "It's lovely, and lots of light," she murmured. She imagined Emma and Lily sitting at a future table, coloring or doing homework, maybe Adam sipping coffee while reading the news. The domesticity of that image brought an unfamiliar warmth to her chest. They continued to the second floor, calling the twins to join. The girls bounded up the stairs, gleeful at the echo of their footsteps. Upstairs, they found 3 bedrooms, a master and 2 smaller ones side by side, a linen closet and a bathroom. Emma clutched Lily's hand, squeaking with excitement as they poked their heads into each bedroom, deciding which one could be theirs. Natalie stepped into the master bedroom, pausing at the window that overlooked the backyard and a glimpse of the horizon beyond. Adam stood beside her, hands in his pockets. He looked around, as if seeing the space through new eyes. "I never expected to live here myself," he admitted quietly. "But if you want me around, I'd like to help with the transition. Maybe, eventually, if it's okay with you, I could stay sometimes, at least until things settle." She turned to him, heart fluttering at the vulnerability in his voice. I'd like that," she said softly, though an edge of uncertainty kept her from promising more. "The girls would love having you here, but I also understand your business. Your life is in the city." He shrugged. "My life can change. Besides, it's only a short drive to downtown. Maybe I work remotely a few days a week. Titan Tech can manage without me physically there all the time." Before she could respond, Emma and Lily burst in, all chatter and wide eyes. "Mommy, can we share a room?" Emma asked, hopping from foot to foot. "We want bunk beds." "Bunk beds, please," Lily echoed, a rare moment of loud excitement from the usually reserved twin. Natalie laughed, relieved at the break in tension. "We'll see," she teased. "But if you share one room, what do we do with the other?" Emma thought hard. Then her face lit up. "A playroom, with our toys and art stuff." "That's a great idea," Adam praised, ruffling her hair. "A little craft corner, maybe some comfy chairs for reading." Lily clutched Emma's arm, beaming. "Yes!" Watching the twins bounce around, Natalie felt a flutter of hope. They truly seemed eager to put roots down here. She allowed herself to imagine a life of routine, waking them for school, afternoon snacks at the table, occasional walks in a neighborhood free from tension. It felt too good, almost too simple, for someone who'd lived in hiding for so long. The next hour passed in a pleasant haze of exploring every closet, opening every door, and laughing at the echo of their voices in empty rooms. Adam jotted down a mental list: furniture, appliances, paint colors. Meanwhile, the girls made an imaginary game out of each corner, proclaiming one closet a secret hideout and another an art studio. Natalie tried to keep them from running too wild, but Adam only chuckled, happy to see them so free. Eventually, they gathered in the living room. The twins flopped onto the bare hardwood floor, giggling about how it's so cool and smooth, while Natalie rested against the wall, arms folded, a slight smile curving her lips. "Any must-haves, I should note?" Adam asked, referencing an invisible notepad. "Indoor slide, maybe." Emma's eyes went huge. "Really?" she squeaked. Natalie laughed. "Don't give her ideas. She'll hold you to it." Adam shrugged in mock seriousness. "We'll see. But seriously, we can set up a playground in the backyard. Swings, a small slide, maybe a sandbox." Lily clapped her hands excitedly. "Yes, yes, yes!" At that moment, Adam's phone chimed. He pulled it from his pocket, glancing at the notification. A text from Cole, the security consultant. "Found some info." Call me when you can." His chest tightened. He forced a neutral expression, slipping the phone away. The last thing he wanted was to alarm Natalie or the kids. "Everything okay?" Natalie asked, noticing the brief flash of concern on his face. He managed to smile. "Yeah, just work stuff." He hesitated. "I might need to step out and make a call soon, but let's finish up here first." She nodded, not pressing further. The girls, oblivious, resumed their excited chatter about bunk beds. Adam sank to a knee beside them, listening to their spirited debate about who would get the top bunk. Inwardly, though, his mind was already on Cole's text. The possibility that something from Natalie's past still posed a threat filled him with a steely resolve. No matter what it took, he wasn't going to let them lose this newfound joy. He gazed around the empty living room, sunbeams through the windows, the faint smell of fresh paint, Emma and Lily's laughter filling the otherwise silent space. This house was more than an investment now. It was a promise he intended to keep. Later that afternoon, after a quick lunch at a nearby diner, Adam drove them back to the hotel. Emma and Lily, still buzzing from the excitement of exploring their potential home, launched into impromptu games of house the minute they stepped into the suite. They used pillows as walls, designated certain corners as the bedroom, and insisted that Adam and Natalie were the grown-ups who had to go to work and then come home to dinner. Natalie watched them with a fond smile. Each new display of the girl's imagination made her realize how much simpler life could be when fear wasn't the dominant force. Yet, she couldn't fully shake off her wariness, especially given Adam's momentary tension back at the house. She sensed he was keeping something from her. "Just work stuff," he had said. Perhaps it truly was, but doubt gnawed at her. Eventually, Adam managed to extricate himself from the twins' game. He exchanged a knowing look with Natalie. "I'll be right back," he promised, slipping out of the suite. She nodded, though her eyes followed him with curiosity. He found a quieter corridor on the same floor, near a set of windows overlooking the city. It was a small lounge area with a couple of modern chairs and a side table. Fishing out his phone, he dialed Cole's number, bracing himself for whatever news might come. Cole answered quickly, voice low and businesslike. "Adam, thanks for getting back to me." "Of course," Adam murmured, glancing around to ensure no one was within earshot. "I saw your text. What did you find?" A short sigh crackled over the line. "A few things, none of them definitive, but they're worth noting. I did a deep dive into old records tied to your friend's father. Bank statements, legal disputes, plus whispers on some less official channels. Seems the father's debts were extensive. He owed money to a couple of high-tier loan sharks. Some people from that circle are still active, though less so than a few years back." Adam's grip on the phone tightened. "Does that mean they might still be looking for Natalie?" "It's possible, but from what I can gather, many of them shifted operations or got dismantled. The main figure, someone referred to as Delgado, ran into his own legal troubles. Part of his organization scattered. Some players either disappeared or got picked up by law enforcement. I'm not seeing direct chatter about Natalie or her father's estate, but that doesn't mean it's entirely safe. If Delgado or his associates believed there was hidden money, they might remain interested." Adam closed his eyes briefly, heart sinking. "So there's a chance they could resurface." A pause. "Yes, but the risk level is unknown. You're a high-profile figure, Adam. If these guys connect the dots, your new involvement with Natalie, they might see an opportunity to collect, whether it's real or not. My advice? Stay discreet. Keep an eye on public records. If you see unusual interest from third parties, fake real estate inquiries, suspicious individuals asking around, let me know." Adam nodded, though Cole couldn't see it. "Got it. I appreciate your thoroughness." "Anytime," Cole replied. "I can set up more robust surveillance if you want. Background checks on new neighbors, monitoring local police scanners in that suburb, stuff like that. But it'll cost you." "Money's not the issue," Adam said flatly. I'll pay for whatever keeps them safe. Just move carefully. I don't want to draw attention. Understood. I'll proceed quietly. They rang off. Adam leaned against the window, gazing down at the bustle of cars and pedestrians below. The revelation weighed on him. Even if Delgado's network had fractured, there was no guarantee that someone wouldn't try to extort or threaten Natalie again, especially now that she was connected to a wealthy CEO. But I won't let that happen, he vowed, thinking of Emma and Lily's carefree laughter. He refused to let their innocence be shattered by old ghosts. Straightening his shoulders, he pocketed his phone and headed back to the suite. Natalie, in his brief absence, had occupied the twins by helping them draw pictures of their new house. Emma meticulously doodled a 2-story rectangle with big windows and flowers in the yard, while Lily sketched shapes representing bunk beds. Their crayons and paper were scattered across the coffee table by the time Adam returned. He forced a relaxed smile, joining them on the floor. "That's a nice drawing," he praised Emma, ruffling her hair. Then he turned to Lily's picture. "And that's the bedroom, right?" Lily nodded, giving him a shy grin. Natalie sat quietly at the edge of the couch, studying Adam's face. He could tell she wanted to ask about the call, but with the girls so close by, she stayed silent. Her eyes, however, spoke volumes of concern. Adam offered a slight, reassuring nod in her direction. "Daddy," Emma piped up suddenly, "when do we move in? Tomorrow? Tonight?" He chuckled, touched by her eagerness. "Not quite that fast, princess. We need furniture, remember? Beds, a couch, maybe a TV." She pouted dramatically. "But I don't mind sleeping on the floor," she insisted, patting the hotel carpet to demonstrate her point. Lily, typically quieter, chimed in, "We want to put pictures on the walls, and our clothes in the closets." Natalie gently smoothed Lily's hair. "We'll move in soon, sweeties. We just need to prepare everything so it's comfortable." Though the twins groaned in playful protest, they seemed satisfied with the promise of a soon move. To distract them, Natalie suggested they watch a cartoon for a bit. They scampered off to find the TV remote, leaving Adam and Natalie a sliver of privacy by the windows. She approached him, voice hushed. "So, was it work stuff?" His expression darkened momentarily. "Not exactly. I got an update from Cole about your father's old debts. Delgado's group might still be out there, though it's fractured. There's no direct sign they're hunting you, but the risk isn't zero." Natalie's face went pale, her hands tensing at her sides. "Oh," Adam cupped her shoulder gently, guiding her gaze to his. "Hey, we'll handle it. If anything suspicious crops up, we'll know. I'm prepared to hire security or whatever else is needed." She swallowed, nodding slowly. I just can't bear the thought of the girls living in fear. They've known enough of that." "And they won't," he murmured firmly. "Not anymore." She let out a shaky breath, leaning against the window's frame. The clouds parted outside, sending a beam of sunlight across her hair. For a moment, Adam was struck by how worn she looked. The years of running had taken a toll, forging lines of tension around her eyes that no amount of rest in a luxury hotel could fully erase. Impulsively, he reached for her hand. "We'll be careful, but let's try not to obsess. The house is in a gated community, which helps, and once we're settled, I'll see about more subtle precautions. Cameras, an alarm system, routine patrols. The neighbors might just think it's because I'm a CEO and we're worried about paparazzi or something." She attempted a small smile. "That's a strange silver lining. Your wealth might give us cover. People won't question extra security." He squeezed her hand gently, then let it go, recalling how complicated their relationship once was, could be again. The tension lingered in the air. He forced a lighter note. "Anyway, let's not dwell on that now. We have kiddos who are about to riot if they don't get enough attention." A ripple of laughter escaped her. "Right." She turned, eyeing the twins sprawled on the sofa, cartoons flickering on the screen. Emma and Lily waved at them, beckoning them over to see some silly moment in the show. The rest of the afternoon meandered by peacefully. They ordered room service for dinner, burger sliders for the kids and salmon fillets for the adults. The twins chatted non-stop about how they wanted their future bunk beds to look, launching into debates on color schemes, pink, purple, maybe rainbow. Evening arrived, and the suite's living room filled with the soft glow of lamps. Emma and Lily, worn out by the day's excitement, yawned widely, rubbing their eyes. Natalie gathered them to begin the bedtime routine, guiding them into pajamas and overseeing toothbrushing. Adam, unsure of his place, lingered a few feet away, offering occasional jokes or praise when the girls brushed thoroughly. After they were tucked into the second bedroom, still a far cry from real bedrooms, but at least they had borrowed pillows and blankets from the hotel, Natalie joined Adam in the living area. He stood by the window, the skyline sparkling below. Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken questions about the future. She finally broke it. "Earlier you said we'd handle it, together." She paused, voice trembling slightly. "I just wanted to say, I'm not used to that, having someone else to share this burden." Adam turned, meeting her gaze. "You're not alone now, Natalie. Maybe that's hard to accept, but it's true." She took a step closer, arms folded protectively across her chest. "What if—" her voice faltered. "What if these men come, or if my father's sins catch up with us again? I wouldn't forgive myself if something happened to you or the girls." He closed the distance between them, gently resting his hands on her upper arms. "Listen, I've dealt with threats in business before, corporate espionage, sabotage. I know this is more dangerous, but I'm not helpless. We'll be smart. We'll rely on resources. And if it gets truly risky, I'll move heaven and earth to keep you safe." Tears glistened in her eyes. She nodded, letting out a shaky breath. "I believe you," she whispered. Then, almost impulsively, she rose on her toes, pressing a tentative kiss to his cheek. It was chaste, fleeting, yet it spoke volumes. Adam's heart thumped in his chest. Memories of their old love threatened to surge. In that gentle brush of lips, he felt a longing he'd suppressed since her disappearance. But for now, he merely squeezed her arms reassuringly, not pushing further. They both carried scars that needed time to heal. "Thank you," she said again. Her eyes darted to the closed bedroom door where Emma and Lily slept. "For everything." He stayed silent, letting the moment speak. Eventually she stepped back, brushing away the tears. "I'm exhausted," she admitted, flashing a wan smile. "Need to try and get some sleep before they wake me at dawn." Adam nodded. "Go on. I'll finish up a few emails out here, then crash on the couch again." Natalie frowned slightly. "You don't have to sleep on the couch, you know. The suite's second bed is hardly used. Emma and Lily end up sharing one, or half the time they wind up in my bed anyway." She blushed. "But only if you want. I mean, there's no pressure." He appreciated the offer, though he recognized her anxiety. "I'll be fine. Thank you," he said gently. "Maybe once we're in the house, we'll figure out the sleeping arrangements." She nodded, not pressing the matter. With a last faint smile, she disappeared into the bedroom, shutting the door softly. Adam let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He settled onto the couch, laptop balanced on his knees, and stared at the half-written email to Marjorie about rescheduling various Titan Tech obligations. He typed mechanically, updating the business side of his life to reflect the new reality. "My family needs me." The words felt surreal, but powerful. Yes, he still had a company to run, obligations he'd once deemed unshakable. But right now, 2 little girls in the next room, and the woman he'd never stopped caring about, mattered more than any board meeting or contract deal. He'd find a way to balance it all, or adapt. As he hammered out instructions to delegate tasks, he thought of Delgado and the uncertain threat that lurked. Could it be that they'd never face real danger, or might it leap at them from the shadows when least expected? He couldn't know. But his resolve solidified. No matter what, he told himself, I will keep them safe. The next morning arrived with subdued clouds drifting across the sky, a quieter, slightly gray dawn that matched the mood of cautious anticipation settling over them. Adam made good on his plan, contacting a home security service first thing, asking them to prioritize his new suburban residence. The conversation was pointed and direct. He wanted a discreet but robust system, cameras at strategic points, motion sensors, a panic alarm linked to a private dispatch, no expense spared. With that matter initiated, he joined Natalie and the twins downstairs in the hotel's casual dining area for breakfast. He found Emma bouncing in her seat, excitedly narrating a dream she'd had about unicorns in the new backyard, while Lily quietly sipped her juice, occasionally chiming in with her own details. Natalie looked on, half smiling, but Adam sensed the tension in the tightness around her eyes. As they ate, Emma swung her legs back and forth under the table. "Daddy, can we go to the house again today?" she asked, eyes shining. "I want to measure the room for my bunk bed." Adam laughed softly. "I'm sure we can arrange another visit soon, but I'm afraid I have a few calls to make first. Business stuff." Both girls let out disappointed groans, but Natalie soothed them, suggesting a quick outing to a nearby children's museum to pass the time. Emma and Lily seemed thrilled by the museum idea, though Lily took a little more convincing. Meanwhile, Adam caught Natalie's gaze. She lifted an eyebrow as if to say, "Are you okay with this plan?" He nodded, relieved that they could entertain the twins without him for a couple of hours, giving him space to handle urgent work and, he hoped, to tie up security details. Once breakfast concluded, Adam gave each twin a quick hug. "You have fun, okay?" he said, ruffling Emma's hair. He hesitated, then held his hand out to Lily, who surprised him by taking it briefly. Her small palm rested against his for a second, then she let go with a shy smile. Natalie watched this exchange, her expression soft. "We'll see you later then? Maybe lunch together?" "That's the plan," Adam agreed, tugging his phone from his pocket. "I'll text you when I'm free." He escorted them to the lobby, helped them into a taxi arranged by the hotel staff, and waved as the vehicle pulled away. A little pang of sadness flickered in his chest. Already missing them, an unfamiliar sensation for a man who'd once thrived on solitude. Shaking it off, he turned to head back inside, keen on making progress. The next few hours slipped by in a flurry of phone calls and digital meetings. Adam locked himself in one of the hotel's small conference rooms, laptop open to a video call with Titan Tech board members. His assistant, Marjorie, had somehow rallied everyone to speak at once, giving him a platform to explain his extended absence. "These personal matters," one board member started, but Adam didn't let him finish. "I understand your concerns, and I'm grateful for your patience," he said, voice crisp with practiced authority. "I'm stepping back into an active role, but from a partial remote setup. I'll be available for critical negotiations and decisions. In the meantime, your cooperation with Marjorie on the ground is vital." A dozen faces stared at him through the screen, some sympathetic, others impatient. But Adam had never been the type to entertain doubts about his leadership. "I trust I have your support?" he asked, a note of finality in his tone. He received a chorus of nods, some genuine, some grudging. Before they could delve into other business tangents, he cut the meeting short, promising to email follow-up directives. Once the call ended, he let out a breath. A partial victory, at least. He'd secured a bit more flexibility, though he sensed murmurs of discontent behind the scenes. Then came another call, this time from the interior decorator he'd hired to fast-track the new house's furnishings. They discussed color schemes, child-friendly furniture, the possibility of a small reading nook in the living room. Adam, only half listening, told them to liaise with Natalie directly to let her choose. He wanted her taste reflected in the design. Finally, he dialed Cole again, his security contact, checking on any updates. Cole reported the early stages of installing the system were underway. My team's at the house now, Cole explained. We're careful not to attract too much attention. Cameras are discreet. The alarm is modern, phone-based. You'll get real-time alerts. Natalie can have access too if she wants. Good, Adam said, nodding to himself. And about the other matter? Nothing new, Cole replied. No chatter we can trace about Natalie or her father's debt. Doesn't mean it won't pop up later, but for now it's quiet. Adam exhaled in relief. Thanks. Keep me posted. He was about to end the call when Cole cleared his throat. One more thing. If you do encounter any approach, someone asking too many questions or probing about the property, keep me informed immediately. The sooner we know, the better we can react. Understood, Adam affirmed, then hung up. A glance at the time showed late morning was edging into noon. If he wanted to meet Natalie and the twins for lunch, he'd need to wrap his tasks. With renewed purpose, he gathered his laptop and notes, slipped them into a slim briefcase and headed up to the suite, his shoes echoing on the polished hotel floors. Natalie and the girls returned from the Children's Museum around midday, bursting into the suite with laughter and stories of interactive exhibits. Emma dramatically recounted how she operated a pretend fire truck, while Lily chimed in, describing a giant bubble station. They tossed their small museum souvenirs onto the coffee table, beaming. Adam, freshly freed from his calls, caught their excitement. Sounds like a fun morning, he observed, closing the laptop he'd been absently flipping through. Natalie nodded. They loved it. I think we might have a couple of budding scientists here, she teased, smiling as Emma proudly brandished a pamphlet on space exploration. Space! Emma exclaimed, scrunching her nose in excitement. I want to go someday. Adam grinned. Well, if you work hard at school, who knows? He noticed Lily's slight frown, as if she felt overshadowed by Emma's boldness. Gently, he tapped Lily's arm. What about you? Did you like the museum? She nodded, quieter. I liked the bubbles, she whispered. Bubbles are awesome, he agreed, matching her soft tone. A small smile emerged on Lily's lips. Shall we get some lunch? Natalie suggested, eyeing Adam. They've been pestering me for pizza. Emma and Lily whooped in agreement. Adam couldn't resist their enthusiasm. Pizza it is. They ended up at a family-friendly restaurant a few blocks from the hotel, its walls painted in cheerful colors, booths cozy enough for the four of them. The twins stared in fascination at the pizza-making station behind glass, watching the dough get tossed in the air before being slathered with tomato sauce and cheese. As they waited, Adam asked Natalie about the interior decorator's call. Did she reach you? She's got some ideas, apparently. She nodded. Yes, but I haven't decided everything yet. Might be nice for us to choose some things together, like the couch or the dining table. I don't want to take over the whole process. He appreciated her consideration. I'd like that. Maybe tomorrow we can visit a showroom or two. While Emma and Lily compared which toppings they found the most gross, anchovies and mushrooms tied for first, Adam and Natalie exchanged a look of mutual amusement. This felt startlingly normal. A small family, debating pizza toppings, planning furniture shopping. A slice of life he'd never envisioned for himself. Before the food arrived, Adam's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and stiffened slightly. The caller ID showed an unknown number, but something in his gut warned him. He almost let it go to voicemail, but on impulse he excused himself from the table, stepping outside to answer. Hello? There was a pause, and then a raspy male voice spoke, low and measured. Adam Hayes. His pulse spiked. Who is this? He demanded, struggling to keep his voice level. The man gave a dry chuckle. Let's say, a business associate of the late Mr. Bryant. I heard you've been playing house with his daughter. Interesting development. Adrenaline flooded Adam's veins. Had Delgado's people found them already? For a second, time seemed to stretch. The muffled sounds of the restaurant, Emma's laughter from within, and the traffic on the street all blurred as he steadied himself. "I don't know who you are, but if you're hoping to collect on some old debt, you're barking up the wrong tree," he managed, voice taut. Another chuckle. "We'll see. Word is that Miss Bryant and her children have found a fancy new patron. Some might interpret that as a golden opportunity, wouldn't you say?" Adam's hand tightened on the phone. "Stay away from them," he warned, forcing steel into his voice. "If you try anything, you'll regret it." A beat. "Heard that before," the caller sneered. "You can keep your threats. We'll be in touch if we decide you owe us. Have a nice day, Mr. Hayes." The line went dead. Adam stared at the phone, heart pounding, fury and fear twisting inside him. So it hadn't taken long. Some piece of the old network had caught wind of Natalie's resurfacing and her connection to a wealthy CEO, a golden opportunity indeed for extortion or worse. He inhaled deeply, forcing himself to calm down. Panicking won't help. He needed to be rational, to alert Cole, to reinforce security measures, and above all, protect Natalie and the twins. Stepping back into the restaurant, he struggled to plaster on a neutral expression. Emma spotted him first. "Daddy, the pizza came," she called, waving a slice dripping with cheese. Lily and Natalie both turned, noticing his tense features. Natalie's brow creased in concern. Adam forced a smile that probably looked too tight. "Let's eat," he said, sliding into the booth. The twins resumed their chatter, oblivious, but Natalie's worried eyes lingered on him. She didn't ask anything yet, maybe because she sensed it wouldn't be safe to talk here. He mouthed the words, "later," and she nodded, lips pressed thin. As Emma regaled him with a dramatic retelling of how her pizza slice almost escaped her plate, Adam mustered the energy to respond with gentle humor, praising her quick reflexes. Inwardly, though, his mind churned. The enemy had a name, a voice, something more concrete than rumors. This changed the game. No matter how he handled it, he knew one thing for certain. Delgado's associates, or whoever that caller was, would never harm the people he loved. A fierce determination flared. If a fight was coming, he'd be ready. He reached under the table, briefly resting a hand on Natalie's. She stiffened, then gave a tiny squeeze in return, their eyes meeting in a silent vow. Together, they'd face whatever threats emerged. "Daddy, are you okay?" Lily asked softly, noticing his distant expression. Adam smiled at her, heart aching with the sincerity in her big, inquisitive eyes. "I'm fine, sweetheart," he lied gently, patting her hand. "Let's enjoy our pizza, okay?" She nodded, satisfied for the moment. But as he took a bite of the steaming slice, Adam tasted only a hint of cheese and sauce. His thoughts were too consumed by the unanswered question, how far would these people go, and what would he do when they tried? Tension thrummed through the car as Adam drove back to the hotel with Natalie and the twins. The pizza outing, which should have been a simple family treat, now felt like a veneer over the threat he'd just received. Emma and Lily were in the back seat, chatting softly about the museum exhibits. Natalie, in the passenger seat, kept sneaking anxious glances toward Adam, silently asking the same question. "Who called you, and what did they say?" But neither of them wanted to spark the children's concern. Instead, Adam tried to carry on a gentle conversation with Emma and Lily, asking which pizza toppings they liked best, complimenting Emma on her comedic retelling of how she almost dropped her slice. By the time they pulled into the hotel's driveway, afternoon clouds had rolled in, casting the glass tower of the Crescent in gray shadows. The moment the elevator doors closed around them, just the four of them in the cab, Natalie shifted closer to Adam. "Was that them?" she murmured. Her tone was quiet enough that the twins, chatting about what cartoons to watch later, wouldn't catch it. "Your call outside the restaurant? Was it about Delgado's people?" Adam's jaw tightened. "Yeah," he admitted in a hushed tone. "I'll explain when we're alone." Natalie's face paled, and she simply nodded. Neither wanted to alert Emma or Lily right now. They would need to handle this as calmly as possible. Any sign of panic, and the twins would start asking questions. Up in the suite, Emma flopped onto the couch, proclaiming she needed a nap after such a big pizza lunch, while Lily nodded in agreement. Natalie suggested they settle in for a short rest. Adam quietly helped them remove their shoes and turn off the bright overhead lights, leaving only the warm glow of a lamp. Once the girls curled up with pillows, drifting into that post-lunch lethargy, Adam motioned for Natalie to follow him into the adjoining bedroom. He closed the door gently behind them. The room had a spacious sitting area, and he gestured for her to sit on the small love seat by the window. She sank down, nerves evident in the stiffness of her posture. Adam lowered himself beside her, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "So," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "tell me." He took a steadying breath. "A man called. Didn't give a name, but he claimed to be one of Delgado's old associates. He knows about you, knows about the twins, and about me." Natalie's eyes closed for a moment, and she pressed her lips tightly together. "What did he want?" Adam tried to keep his voice calm. "He hinted that we might be a golden opportunity for them. Basically, a threat, like they'll come for money or try to extort us." She shook her head, anger and fear battling in her expression. "I was afraid of this. They must have eyes on me, on us. Or maybe they just heard rumors. My father always bragged about my relationship with you back in college. He used me as leverage once. They could do it again." "We're not going to let that happen," Adam said firmly. Natalie swallowed hard, gazing at him with tears threatening to form. "What do we do now?" Adam reached for her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "First, we stay calm. I've already started beefing up security at the new house. Cameras, alarms, private monitoring, Cole's on standby. If these people show up, we'll know. And if it escalates, we'll involve law enforcement. Though I'd prefer to keep it quiet unless absolutely necessary." Her brow furrowed. "You know they'll want a payoff. That's all they ever do. Threaten until you give them money. But no matter what we give them, it won't end. They'll keep coming back." He nodded grimly, recalling the nature of such criminal rings. "We can't feed that beast. We need to show them we won't be intimidated. If they truly believe there's no hidden fortune to wring out of your father's estate, maybe they'll back off." Natalie exhaled, trembling. "I hate this. The girls were so happy, talking about bunk beds. Now," Adam placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't let them see our fear. Let them be children. We'll handle the ugly stuff behind the scenes." She looked at him, eyes filled with gratitude mingled with uncertainty. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I brought this into your life." He shook his head. "I don't blame you. I blame them." A pause. "Look, we'll move into the house sooner than planned. At least there, we'll have a security perimeter. And we'll remain alert. If anything suspicious happens, phone calls, strange cars parked outside, we'll respond swiftly." Natalie squeezed her eyes shut, clearly overwhelmed, then nodded. "Okay, let's do it. Let's move into the house as soon as the basics are ready." Adam nodded. "I'll let the decorator and the appliance delivery folks know to expedite. We can camp out in sleeping bags if we must. The sooner you're behind a gate, the better I'll feel." She leaned into him, and for a moment he slid his arm around her. The weight of her head on his shoulder felt both comforting and heartbreaking. He remembered a simpler time, in that old college dorm, where her biggest worry might have been an upcoming exam. Now real danger loomed, danger they had to outsmart for the sake of their children. They stayed like that for a minute, breathing in sync. Finally, Adam spoke. "We'll get through this, Nat." She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I believe you." That evening, after the twins' nap, they decided to keep things light for the girls. They ordered a simple dinner, soup and sandwiches, and played card games on the floor of the suite, with Emma laughing uproariously every time Lily managed to beat Adam at Go Fish. Natalie occasionally glanced at the door or windows, as though expecting trouble to burst in at any moment. Yet no further calls or ominous messages came. After the kids went to bed, Adam and Natalie shared a quiet moment in the living area, finalizing the plan. She and the twins would move to the house the day after tomorrow, even if the furniture was only partially set up. Adam would handle the last of the logistics. He'd arrange for a professional moving service to bring in essentials that he'd purchased or rented for immediate use. The rest could be completed once they were safely installed. Natalie accepted the arrangement with relief, though Adam could see guilt flickering in her eyes. She'd never wanted him to shoulder these burdens. But he reminded her that it was as much for his peace of mind as for hers. Protecting them was no chore. It was an obligation he embraced. The following day, Adam took Emma and Lily to a local toy store, while Natalie picked out basic kitchenware with the decorator. The girls were told they could choose 2 items each for their new house. True to their personalities, Emma bounded around, picking up sparkly crafts, plush toys, and colorful puzzles, while Lily carefully tested each toy before making her decisions. Unbeknownst to the twins, Adam maintained a subtle vigilance, scanning the store for any suspicious onlookers. He'd set Cole's men to watch discreetly from outside, just in case. Every so often he'd sense a prickle in the back of his neck, as if someone were watching. But each time he turned, he saw only fellow parents, tired store employees, or wide-eyed kids, probably his own nerves. Emma settled on a bright pink stuffed unicorn and a box of magic markers, proclaiming she'd decorate her bunk bed with homemade posters. Lily chose a soft rabbit plush and an intricate puzzle. Adam paid, ushering them outside into the late afternoon sun, quickly confirming with the security man across the street that everything was clear. When Natalie joined them later, the trunk of the rented SUV was filled with new essentials: dishes, cutlery, a starter set of pots and pans, plus bedding for the twins. She'd even found a floral comforter that Lily quietly adored, though Lily was too shy to request it until Natalie coaxed her into admitting it was her favorite. Emma, of course, insisted on a rainbow-themed set for her top bunk. They returned to the hotel exhausted, yet satisfied. The sense of progress was tangible. The next morning, they would leave for the new house in earnest. Night descended heavily, the city lights flickering like stars against the windows of their suite. Emma and Lily were tucked in, their suitcases mostly packed. Natalie stood by the window, arms crossed, staring at the reflections of passing headlights on the glass. Adam approached quietly, wearing casual clothes, a t-shirt and jeans instead of his usual tailored attire. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked gently. She inhaled. "Just wondering if I'll ever feel normal again. We're so close to a new start, but I keep expecting the worst." She shrugged helplessly, turning to him. "I know the girls are excited, but I'm paranoid." Adam moved closer, the warmth of his presence reassuring. "That's understandable, but you said it yourself. This is a chance for them to have a real home. Let's focus on that." She nodded, tears glistening. "I'm trying." Silence stretched, punctuated only by the hum of the hotel's air conditioning. Then, impulsively, Adam slipped an arm around her waist, drawing her close. Their gazes locked, breath mingling. "You don't have to face this alone anymore," he whispered. Natalie's cheeks flushed, but she didn't pull away. Slowly, she lifted her hands to rest on his shoulders. For a moment, the tension of the past and the uncertainty of the future dissolved in the quiet closeness. Then, softly, their lips brushed in a tentative kiss, a shared promise laced with longing, heartbreak, and hope. When they pulled apart, neither needed words to acknowledge the significance. A swirl of unsaid emotions flickered in their eyes. Perhaps they were ready to rebuild not just a family, but also the love they'd once lost. "Come on," Adam murmured, stepping back so the moment didn't escalate beyond the fragile lines they'd set. "We have an early day tomorrow." She nodded, blinking away tears. "Yes, we do." He placed a gentle hand on her cheek. Sleep well, Natalie." A faint smile curved her lips. "You too, Adam." Morning arrived with a hush of cool air and the first hints of sunrise. Emma and Lily, their excitement barely contained, scampered around the suite, making sure they had their favorite drawings and stuffed toys ready. Adam assisted with the last bits of packing, while Natalie nervously checked the hallway through the peephole, scanning for anything odd. Nothing seemed out of place. Downstairs, 2 large SUVs waited, the staff helping them load items. Cole's discreet security men lingered nearby, eyes scanning the perimeter. Adam, stooping to catch Lily's backpack that almost tumbled from her arms, exchanged a meaningful nod with one guard. The message was clear: protect them at all costs. As the vehicles pulled away from the hotel, Adam exhaled, gripping the steering wheel of the lead SUV. Natalie sat beside him, the twins in the back seat, chattering about how they'd arrange their new bunk bed. He shot her a reassuring glance, and she managed a small, brave smile. No suspicious cars followed. The drive to the suburban house was smooth, uneventful, yet a current of tension kept them alert. By the time they reached the gated community, the morning sun had fully risen, bathing the quiet streets in soft golden light. The guard waved them through, and they rolled up to the driveway of the house that now bore their name on the utility bills: Hayes, Bryant, whichever. But more importantly, a place they intended to call home. Security cameras discreetly perched under the eaves, an alarm sign posted near the front door. As soon as Adam parked, Emma and Lily leapt out, squealing at the sight of a small, moving truck already unloading a shiny new couch. "Look, Mommy!" Emma cried, pointing at the bright fabric. Lily clutched her stuffed rabbit, half hiding behind Emma, but her eyes danced with excitement. Natalie stepped out, scanning the yard, the street, the windows of neighbors' houses. Finding nothing amiss, she drew a steady breath. Adam joined her, gently threading his fingers through hers for a moment. "Welcome home," he said softly. She turned to him, a tear slipping down her cheek. This time not from fear, but from the overwhelming realization that they might finally be safe. The twins bounced on the porch, urging them to hurry inside. Adam squeezed Natalie's hand, then released it so they could follow the girls. The front door swung open to reveal the fresh paint, the newly delivered furniture, and the faint hum of the security system. Boxes labeled with each twin's name stood ready to be unpacked. A sense of promise clung to the air. Yes, shadows from the past lurked somewhere out there, and the phone call at the pizza restaurant served as a stark reminder of potential danger. But at least here, they had a fortress. One Adam was determined to fortify with every resource at his disposal. A fortress that, with each giggle and footstep of the twins, would become a true home. Stepping across the threshold, the 4 of them, father, mother, and 2 bright-eyed daughters, took their first steps into a life that, while still fraught with unknowns, felt closer to real happiness than any of them had dared hope for in years. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.